Hello and welcome to something a little different. I have a list of, very short to the point stories from Commaful.com. It's a site where you can read stories, a little at a time. I'll link it in the description. Without further ado, let's just jump into it. What happens when you call your own number? Written by Artizi. It began like any other silly internet challenge. Calling your own phone number and leaving a silly message. Why? Who knew? It was just another fad, and like every single time before, she followed it. Why not? She had already played the cinnamon challenge, coughing the spoonful out. She had already thrown an entire bucket worth of icy water on top of her head. So many other challenges she had encountered online. So she dialed her own number, and pressed call. Much to her surprise, it rang. She gasped, confused, and frustrated. Surely she had just dialed the number wrong, and was now wasting seconds from her monthly plan. But when she checked the number, it was correct. So out of curiosity, she heard it ring, over and over. Just when she was ready to hang up, someone finally answered. Hello? It was her voice. What the hell is going on? Hi? A long pause ensued before she spoke again. Or rather, the girl on the other side of the line, who shared her same voice. Who is this? The girl sounded worried, and she felt concerned as well. It's Anna. Whoever this is, it's not funny, the Anna on the other side of the line replied, before hanging up. Anna sat there, stunned. But before long, her phone began ringing again. It was her own number. She was too scared to pick up the phone, but it wouldn't stop ringing, even when she tried to turn it off. Killing Rituals, written by Artizi. He went through his checklist, as he always did before going hunting. Though many men enjoyed the thrill of a good game, hunting down deers, ducks, or even going fishing, he had far more unique tastes. He liked the way people gasped and stared in horror before taking their last breath, especially if those people were women. Pretty women. His rituals were peculiar. They always had been. Wearing black clothes while out hunting, making sure he shaved his hair off regularly to avoid leaving strands behind, yet never forgetting to wear a wig while in public. Keeping his nails trimmed was also important. One could never be too careful when making sure no evidence was left behind. That was why the clothes he wore kept any victim from potentially scratching his bare skin. No DNA left behind. He ran daily to keep himself fit, and when indulging in a special meal, it always would include one of those delicious meat cuts he kept in his freezer, cuts one couldn't just buy in a butcher shop. Rituals were important. They were what kept him from getting caught. After all, he seized his first victim when he was in his 20s, and now he was a week shy of his 50th birthday. His black, nondescript bag carried the essentials: tape, rope, knife, all store-bought, the same kind millions across America used every day. The smirk on his face as he walked out his front door was anything but ordinary. There was a darkness lurking behind it, the smile of a predator, a smile he only wore while alone, or when standing face to face with his brand new victim. It was killing time. All he was missing now was a pretty woman, and as he took a soothing night stroll through the park, he found one that perfectly fit his requirements. This Isn't My Body, written by Artizi. This isn't my body. I woke up inhabiting the body of a complete stranger, as I did yesterday, and the day before. In fact, since I died a full week ago, I've been jumping out of bed, locked away under someone else's skin. Every night, for 7 nights now, I've died. Or rather, I died a week ago, and now other people are dying. Only, they are far gone by the time I take over their lives. For less than 12 hours every single time. I'm scared. No one believes me, and I've told this story 5 different times already, in 5 different voices. One time, even in a different language I didn't used to know. This time, I didn't even try it. That's why I'm sitting here, using the laptop of a man in his 40s. He's bald and thin, and lives alone. He has no family, or at least no pictures of them. What he does have are terrible videos in his computer. Videos involving children. He hurts them. Yesterday, I wore a drug trafficker's skin. The day before that, teenager who, I discovered a few hours before dying, was planning a school shooting. I used to be a regular girl, never harmed a soul. I'm not like these people I'm forced to live as for almost a full day each. Why can't I just die? Why must I return, over and over? I need help. It's midday, and I still have a few hours left. I've never died before sunset, at least not so far. So I need your advice. Even if you don't believe me, even if you think this is bullshit, help me out. Make a game out of it if you want to. But give me a few ideas. For God's sake. I need a way out. Dying over and over again is just too painful. She's Alive, written by Artizi. She was back. The entire town was in awe. Melissa disappeared 20 years ago when she was just a 4-year-old child. She was all grown up the day she returned. A beautiful, if quiet woman. 2 decades ago, her parents had rushed to the local police in a mad panic, telling a horrible story about a man kidnapping their little girl and running away with her. They had searched for Melissa for years. People organized vigils and volunteered to help in the daily search parties, but she never showed up. As the months turned into years, people slowly began to lose hope, but their parents still were heartbroken. No one blamed them. How could they accept that their little girl would never return to them? But now, Melissa was finally back. She had shown up in the police station, and her identity had promptly been confirmed thanks to her fingerprints. The news traveled through town like wildfire. There were folks gathered around the police station to welcome her back before her parents took her home. No one understood, though, why Jim and Lucy looked so pale. Perhaps they were just unshocked to finally have Melissa back. Surely, they were incredibly gleeful about seeing their little girl again. Lucy and Jim, however, were not happy. They didn't smile as they entered their home, followed by Melissa. How could they, when they had buried her 20 years ago? Right after the accident, Jim got violent when he was drunk. He truly hadn't meant to hit his little girl in the head. Not that hard. When they had made the story about the kidnapper up in order to avoid jail time, how could their daughter be there now? When they knew exactly where her body was hidden, below a new layer of cement they had covered the hole in the basement with. Don't look behind you. Written by Artizi. You know you want to look behind you. I know it. It's instinctual, like thinking about pink elephants when you're told not to. Maybe you already did it. Maybe you chuckled at being so silly and turning around. That will only make what's about to happen even worse for you. I'm sorry about doing this, but I just want to survive. I have a kid. I love my life. I bet you have people who love you too, and I'm very sorry about doing this. Listen to me, please. Don't look back. It's lurking close to you now. So close. Can you hear it? It's almost imperceptible now, but it won't be for long. I bet you can notice something moving closer. I sent it to you, offered it a new victim. The story is a trap, and you've fallen for it. Now it knows you're out there. Running won't help. I've tried it before. I barely survived that experience. Let me give you a piece of advice. It's the least I can do, now that I've doomed you to a hellish experience. For no reason in the world allow the lights to go off. Keep them on, at all times. During the night, during the day, it doesn't matter. Keep your cell phone handy, in case it makes sure the lamps in your apartment or home stop working. It's clever that way. Devious that way. Don't scream. Screaming makes it hurt you all the worse. But more importantly, don't look directly at it. So for crying out loud, don't look behind you now. The Chessboard, written by Artizi. My grandpa had passed away a few weeks prior. Being his only living relative, I had no other choice but to be the one to go through his stuff and make the difficult decision of choosing what was to be kept and what sold or thrown away. My grandfather and I had always shared a strenuous, complicated relationship. As my parents had passed away when I was a kid, I was forced to live with him from an early age. It wasn't that he was a bad man, he was just complicated and set in his ways. Having a kid rushing around the house he kept so immaculate ruined his daily life. Still, going through his things and sorting out what I wanted to keep was emotional, so I decided not to rush the process. I took a few days off work and began speaking with a realtor to potentially sell the house soon. The attic was my first stop, and I was surprised by how cluttered it was. My grandfather's house was immaculate, always pristine and tidy, but the attic was another story altogether. Sighing, I began moving stuff around, trying to make sense of everything he stored up there. That was when I saw it. Covered with a glass box, the old chessboard set I hadn't seen since I first moved into Grandpa's house over 30 years ago. He had stored it away in a huff, about a month after my arrival, due in no small part to my fascination with it. The pieces were so intrinsically carved, and I wanted so badly to learn to play the game, but he refused to let me put a finger on it. One day, as he discovered me trying to grab one of the towers, he snapped violently at me, and I never saw the set again. I figured he had just thrown it away. And yet, there it was, set neatly when everything around it was in a state of disarray. I figured it was a good time as any to do what my childhood self had wanted to do so badly and remove the glass box, carefully setting it on the floor. I grabbed a pawn and moved it forward, setting it on the square right in front of it. The pawn felt surprisingly icy under my fingers, even if it was almost 30 degrees Celsius outside. I tried to move another piece, but it wouldn't budge. No matter how many I tried to move, they were stuck. I figured my grandfather had glued them all in place, and forgotten about that one pawn. Shrugging to myself, I covered the chessboard once more, and thought what a waste of a perfectly good set doing that was. I kept working all through the day, and slept in my old bed that night. The following morning, as I stepped up into the attic, something immediately caught my eye. The chessboard was no longer covered, and a pawn from the other side of the board had been moved. I thought about calling the cops, but after making sure nothing else was missing, and that all the doors and windows were locked, I figured they'd call me a nut job if I tried to explain what happened. So I returned to the chessboard, my hand trembling as I tried to move another pawn forward. Much to my surprise, I was able to do so with no further issue. Only once I set it down, it became impossible to move any other pieces. You can imagine how slow the rest of the day dragged on for me. It was dawn when I rushed into the living room the next morning, where I had set the chessboard after much deliberation. Lo and behold, another piece had been moved. I don't know if I should keep playing. I'm not sure what will happen if I lose. Thank you for listening. It's a little different from what I'm used to doing, so like, comment, and subscribe, and give me some feedback if you want to see some more of this. All 31 of you. Kisses.